Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your September 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here, and being a Sun in Sagittarius myself, I'm always kind of curious and very invested in whatever is happening in the month that I'm covering, and so this is no exception. September is a time when the Sun spends the first 3 weeks approximately in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo to Sag, being a mutable sign, is an angular house, in this case, the 10th house. So if you think back to past Septembers, you may notice that memorable things happen as it relates to career matters, or that you feel a desire to, push forward in some way. There's an ambition. That's what the 10th house is all about. And kind of putting yourself out there in the world. 10th house is your place in the sun. And we're going to have a new moon here on the 6th of September at 14 degrees of Virgo. Now, at the time of this new moon, Mars is still in Virgo as well. So you have two planets that represent masculine ideals of ambition and identity that are joining forces in this house that is all about status and success and things like that. And so it's really a powerhouse in a lot of ways. So this can bode very well for you if you're trying to advance yourself in that way. The thing about Mars in the 10th house is that you have to make sure that you're not overdoing it, pushing too hard, and even in some cases stepping on the toes of authority figures, because that's another thing that the 10th house represents. And so sometimes a person can get a little too big for their britches when they have Mars in the 10th and they think that they're the boss and they think that they can kind of do whatever they want, and they find out really quickly that that's not quite the truth. Now, of course, this is if you work for somebody else, so it's not going to apply to everybody. On the 10th of the month, Venus goes into Scorpio, which is the sign right before Sag. And this is a house that is very secluded. So when Venus, which is this very social planet, goes into the 12th house, suffice it to say, it's not going to be the social butterfly it is in the 11th house, which is Aquarius's house. This is Pisces domain. And so anyone who is dating, having some kind of a romance, they may feel this urge to kind of keep it hidden for some reason. And it's not necessarily anything shady. It might simply be that you want to protect this budding flower, this very fragile entity, from prying eyes, from people who maybe they're jealous, or when I say jealous, I mean envious of your relationship, and they want to try and sabotage it in some way because they don't have a relationship themselves, or the relationship they have isn't very good, so they want to kind of poke holes in your relationship. And in some cases, you just maybe you have kids and you don't want to introduce your children to a new person that you're dating, because you're not sure that it's going to last, and you want to just, have your kids' lives be turned upside down. So it might be to protect them. But yeah, you could be doing something behind the scenes in this area. This is also, Venus is connected to the arts. So it is possible that some of you will translate some of your spiritual visions or experiences into some kind of art work. And I've seen spiritual art, and it's very interesting and it's very inspiring. And, the 12th house, I think, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who passed away several years ago, he would always talk about, the word inspiring, being in spirit. And the 12th house is really about you getting into your spirit. But with Venus here, it introduces the idea of art melding or merging with the spiritual. And it is a great combination because it's like you have this visual that you can meditate on that has like a spiritual theme. And it can be very abstract. I can't remember. It was like some kind of I think it was like a spiritual expo that I went to, and they had these kind of spiritual paintings or what have you, and it was very cool to see them. So that's happening on the 14th. Mars goes into Libra, so that is the 11th house. This is the house of friendships and groups. And so Venus leaves that 11th house, and then Mars, a few days later, goes into that same house. I think Sagittarius are going to go for it when it comes to pursuing their dreams. This is what the 11th house is all about. It's like not, holding back anymore. And what your particular dream or long range goal is going to differ, even though we're all born under the sign of Sagittarius, or in some cases you might be Sag rising. But even if someone else shares this with you, that doesn't mean you're going to have the same desires and the same goals. So the point is that Mars is just very bold, aggressive, confident, and this may play out in the way that you pursue your passions. Mars is also very passionate. And given that this is a social area, Mars can also be quite aggressive or assertive. And in some cases, you may even have some kind of conflict in this area. So let's say you belong to a group and you no longer feel that you're on the same page with them person, or maybe you, or I said person, but people. Maybe you've kind of held your tongue for a long time, and now you're just kind of letting everyone know how you feel. And it doesn't have to be malicious. It may just be that you finally have gotten up the nerve to do so. This can also simply be a great time to network, where you're really being aggressive about even like the internet, because the 11th house can connect with the internet. That you're putting yourself out there. Perhaps in the past you were a little bit reticent, and now you're just really bold about it. Also, the 11th house is a humanitarian house, so this could be the social justice warrior types who are springing into action over a cause. On the 20th, there's a full moon at 28 degrees of Pisces. Again, another mutable sign like Virgo, but this time in the opposite direction. So this is in the domestic area, fourth house of home and family. And this speaks of endings. And this is a very late degree full moon in Pisces, 28 degrees. So something really coming to culmination. For some Sages, there might be a move in the future, and this is kind of the, not to say, oh yeah, you're going to be moving October 1st after this, although some of you might be, but just that kind of the beginning of the end. Some of you may sell a house. Maybe you've had it on the market and it finally sells, or you close on a house that you've had your eye on. Something comes to culmination with property or the home environment. The fourth house can be the mother, and there could be some news, or you find out something, or some kind of completion there, like what's that, like full circle type of thing. This is also the house of childhood, so this might have some kind of closure. That's what I meant. That you have about mother or your childhood, and that can also come from a realization or some kind of like a spiritual download that illuminates what you've been dealing with or carrying for, in some cases, a really long time. On the 22nd, now this is just a couple of days later, we go from that full moon into the sun entering the cardinal sign of Libra at the time of the equinox. So this is a very potent period from in those couple of days. Actually, I would say the 20th through the 27th, because then on the 27th, we have a Mercury retrograde at 25 degrees of Libra. So Mars is in that 11th house, and then you have a Mercury retrograde in that 11th house. Oh, that should be interesting for computer work or internet work to have Mercury retrograde here. But if you are somebody who really relies on online stuff, Sag, for your promotion of whatever it is that you do, or if you have been thinking about doing something along these lines, you may go back and rethink some of that, because and for people who have been doing certain things, you may want to do things differently, because one of the things that I think people make a mistake is they think that because something worked before, it's going to continue to work forevermore. And sure, I mean, a lot of things do seem to work for extended periods of time, and yet sometimes you do have to tweak things, and you have experiences that really kind of urge you, at least to some degree, to look at how you're doing things and seeing if there's a better way, or a way that is keeping in step with what is changing in the overall collective. The 11th house is the collective. And, I feel like when Mercury is in the 11th house, it's like getting a pulse on the collective. And that also, because the internet is so ubiquitous, we can't, separate ourselves from it, even if we wanted to, even if we say, I'm a Luddite, I just don't want anything to do with technology. We can't help it. It is what it is. And yet, there are still things that people can do to set themselves apart from others. The other thing about this Mercury retrograde is that this can involve you and maybe a friend or your social circle. Like I said, Mars is here. There might be something that is contentious, and you realize that you're not on the same wavelength with another person or people. And I think of the 11th house as this tribal vibe, and when you're not plugged into it, there are these ruptures. So you might realize that somebody isn't hearing you as you want to be heard, and you have to rectify that. And part of it can be because you are asserting yourself more. So, for instance, if you have a circle of friends and you've always felt like you're the one that kind of gets treated in a way that is not as respected, or what have you, and you finally have enough and you start becoming more assertive, the other people can push back because they have been used to regarding you in one way. And there are these group dynamics where one person might be the one that everyone kind of disses, even if it's like friendly or so-called friendly, or maybe they take advantage of that person because they know that they can. And really, the bigger picture in terms of this Mercury retrograde is to look at whether or not these relationships are viable, because it's possible that you've been settling for less. And, for instance, if you have a social circle that you've had maybe even since high school, I mean, maybe it's people from your hometown and you still live close by, and you deal with them, and it's like almost like they're family because you've known them so long, but you really don't like how you feel after you are gone, after you leave their company, you don't feel so good about yourself, then you know that you have moved on and outgrown that need for that type of those friendships, because you are in a different place now. Maybe you have a different vibe going. So it can be very disconcerting, because you may feel like you're losing something, but really you're gaining a sense of self-respect, if it is how I described, obviously. So yeah, you may even be rethinking some of your dreams, the things that you have been wishing for, because now you have more information. And like I said, that full moon could be very powerful in that fourth house, and it might really touch upon the past. And that certainly can make our dreams, we can edit our dreams because of that. Because sometimes we want things for the wrong reasons because we're reacting to something else. And once we get certain things clarified within ourselves, we no longer have some of those same goals. So I think that it'll be a very interesting month altogether, and I hope that this resonated. Sag, if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.